Imagine being on top of the world in football, unstoppable, celebrated, legendary, and you have the best player of all time in your club in Lionel Messi. And then in what feels like an instant, you lose it all. A crumbling foundation, reckless spending, and a legacy that just seemed destined to fade. But what if I told you Barcelona? Yes, that Barcelona clawed back itself from the brink of disaster to becoming one of the best teams in the world once more. Today they sit top of La Liga, beating Real Madrid 4-0 at the Bernabeu, and they dominated them in the process. But just how did they get to this point? To understand this, we need to go back to 2021, a year that tested the entire club's foundation. 2021 was a catastrophic year for FC Barcelona. Years of reckless spending under their ex-president Josep Maria Bartomeu had left the club drowning in debt, with a staggering 1.3 billion euros in debt. They were spending 110% of their revenue on player wages alone, pushing financial stability to the breaking point. I mean, the ultimate blow came when Barcelona had to part ways with Lionel Messi, the greatest player of all time and a symbol of their success. And his emotional farewell symbolized the end of an era. The man who had brought 4 Champions Leagues to the Camp Nou, who epitomized the club's golden age, was forced out due to financial mismanagement. And to us as fans of football, maybe not so much Real Madrid fans, but it felt like the soul of Barcelona had left and the fans were completely devastated. As Bartomeu left, Joan Laporta, who was the ex-Barcelona president, came back to the club. I mean, his re-election as president brought back some initial hope, but the financial problems he faced were colossal. Laporta knew that the club had to act fast or they risked falling into irrelevance. The now famous financial lever strategy, which was a plan to pull Barcelona back from the dead. His plan to raise quick funds to meet the demands of the surmounting debt was by selling 25% of their La Liga broadcasting rights for the next 25 years, whilst also selling portions of their media assets. At the time, and still now, these levers are seen as super controversial, essentially mortgaging the club's future. But they provided the liquidity needed to bring back some good feeling amongst the club. And aside from all the gloom, a familiar face returned to spark some hope. Out went Ronald Koeman and in came Xavi. The midfield legend and the architect of Barcelona's famed tiki-taka side of the late 2000s and the early 2010s returned as manager, vowing to restore the club's identity. In March 2022, Barcelona stunned Real Madrid by again beating them 4-0 at the Bernabeu. And a big part of that success, thanks to the financial levers being pulled, was through brilliant performances through Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and Ferran Torres. It was just a brief glimpse of the past glory, but it was a reminder of what Barcelona can eventually become. Yet for all of the magic of the El Clasico win, the problems still loomed large at Barcelona. The financial crisis was still there and Barcelona's road to redemption had only just begun. Following season, in the 22-23 season, Barcelona took a huge step forward. The signings of Robert Lewandowski, Rafinha and Jules Koundé allowed Barcelona to really compete this season. Laporta's levers allowed the club to invest in top talent with a summer spend of around 150 million euros. This was a huge statement of intent given the previous summer and given what was looming at Barcelona in terms of the financial difficulties. But the thing is, the spending spree wasn't without the pressure because the new players had to deliver. Despite ongoing financial issues, Barcelona clinched their first La Liga title since 2019, the first in 4 years, with a defense that seemed to be impenetrable. Their backline of Jules Koundé, Ronald Araujo, Andreas Christensen and young Alejandro Balde was exceptional, transforming Barcelona into the stingiest defense in Europe. I mean, Barcelona only conceded 20 goals over 38 La Liga fixtures, the fewest across Europe's top 5 leagues. But behind this fortress stood Marc-Andre ter Stegen, who turned into a brick wall with a remarkable 27 clean sheets. His save percentage soared to 85%, leading Europe's top goalkeepers. And he even outperformed his expected goals against by an impressive 13 goals, breaking all La Liga records for goalkeeping in the process. The problem is, these stats tell a story of a defense that overperformed and relied on ter Stegen's brilliance. It was genuinely an impressive feat, but it wasn't necessarily that sustainable. And this defensive record, this resilience, it didn't really translate into European success. In fact, Barcelona were knocked out of the group stage in the Champions League, and when they went down into the Europa League, they were knocked out straight away by Manchester United. Whilst their La Liga dominance was clear, their conservative approach raised some questions. Could they return to Europe's elite? It was clear that they were close, but they were still not quite there, and they needed missing pieces. In came the summer, La Liga was secured, but Laporta wanted to push forward and strive further in European competitions, especially in the Champions League. Barcelona's finances still remained stretched. The club sold an additional 25% of Barcelona studios and finalized an additional sponsorship with Spotify worth 62.5 million euros annually. These moves allowed Barcelona to add some real needed depth into the team. They added Ilkay Gundogan, they added Joao Cancelo, and they also included Joao Felix on loan. Their goal was simple: build on their domestic success, whilst also improving in Europe. But the 23-24 season, it was a mixed bag for Barcelona. Injuries disrupted their momentum, and with Frankie de Jong and Pedri missing huge chunks of the season due to injury, it was impossible for Barcelona to reenact what they did in the season before. These players averaged 6.1 progressive carries and 5.8 passes into the final third respectively. It really hampered Barcelona's creativity and midfield control. And when we look at Robert Lewandowski, who scored 23 league goals in the season prior, he suffered a huge drop in form, only scoring 14 goals in La Liga last season. Their attack stumbled. They were averaging just 1.6 goals per game, which was a noticeable drop from the season before at 1.9. Their expected goals metric also fell to 1.7 per game, marking a historic low for Barcelona. Despite all of these problems on and off the pitch for Barcelona, however, a bright spark emerged. And we're talking about 16-year-old Lamine Yamal. Last season, Lamine Yamal recorded 5 goals and 7 assists, averaging an impressive 0.45 xG per 90. And it was a stat that positioned Lamine Yamal amongst the most promising players in world football at the time. But these struggles still remain, and their inconsistencies cost them. They finished in the top 3 in La Liga, and they were knocked out of the Champions League quarter-final by PSG. It was evident that Xavi was holding back, and the board realized it was time for a new direction. And that's when they turned to a new man with a super fresh perspective in Hansi Flick. With Hansi Flick's arrival, everything changed. Known for his high-intensity, high-pressing approach, Flick brought a completely new vision to Barcelona. And we're talking not just a tactical shift, but a complete cultural transformation as well so far. Because his philosophy was super clear and super easy to understand. Relentless pressing, swift counter-attacks, and freedom for attacking players to create and roam across the pitch. Under Flick so far, Barcelona's possession has dropped from the average of 65% to a now record low in 58%. But so far this season, their offensive productivity has skyrocketed. They went from 1.7 xG last season to 2.5 this season on average. They've doubled their big chances per game, going from 1.3 to 2.6. And Flick's pressing system has allowed Barcelona to lead La Liga in passes per defensive action, with only 7.5 passes before pressing compared to 12.4 from last season. But Hansi Flick didn't just bring this tactical change, he ushered in a new youth revolution. 6 of his common use players are 22 years old or younger, because he had faith in La Masia, Barcelona's youth academy, and it's slowly shaping to become one of the pillars of the new era. Aside from the players that get all of the plaudits in terms of Pedri, Gavi, Lamine Yamal, there's a new bunch of youth players coming through the system as well. We're talking Marc Casado, we're talking Pau Cubarsí, we're talking Fermin Lopez, we're talking Hector Fort. All of these players are strengthening Barcelona in a way you could never even imagine. These new players have given Barcelona a new level of energy, making them faster, fitter, bolder, and the result was evident to see against Real Madrid. Aside from all the young players, we have to give a huge shout out to Rafinha, who's become Europe's most potent attacker right now. In the summer, Barcelona fans were asking for Nico Williams to join the club, but Rafinha took it upon himself to become Europe's most feared left winger right now. That, alongside Lewandowski coming back into form, Barcelona are a team to be feared. And that performance against Real Madrid, it was a statement that Barcelona were not just back, but they are a new force in world football. So if we take a step back, it really showcases how transformational Barcelona have been. It's genuinely been unbelievable. Barcelona fans around the world remember Messi's departure, remember that emotional departure as well. But now when we look at it, Barcelona are back. And when we look back at this story in the future, this story is one of resilience and bold reinvention. This isn't just the triumphant Barcelona of Messi, of Pep Guardiola, of Xavi. No, it's something completely different. It's driven by youth, it's shaped by risk, and it's led by a manager who's willing to break all boundaries in Hansi Flick. And under Hansi Flick, it isn't about returning to glory under Barcelona. It's about shaping a brand new future.